Okay, shall we press record then? Oh,
Sure.
we are. Okay, welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome 4 colleagues for presentation this week. Marie-Louise Österlind, who's Program Director of the Work-Life Organization, Human Resources and Leadership Program in the University of Kristianstad in Sweden. She's got many publications to her name about educational and organizational matters. I noticed a paper recently on the construing by teachers of quality, which looked very interesting. We've got Shane Dowle from the University of Surrey and Royal Holloway. Was that before, Shane, or you're currently at Surrey, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I'm currently at Surrey and my PhD was at Royal Holloway.
Right, and you're working on doctoral researchers, aren't you, amongst other things?
That's right.
And Kim Bradley-Cole, I think, is she here yet? Hopefully will be joining us soon. She's senior lecturer at the University of Winchester and specializing in leadership and organizational behavior. And to lead the session, we have Emeritus Professor Pam Denicolo, our old friend, leading the session today, and she's at the Universities of Surrey and Reading, or was before. You're now an independent consultant, Pam?
All 3.
Sorry?
All 3.
Yeah. Pam has written copiously over the years and has many books to her name, including Constructivist Approaches and Research Methods in 2016. And that's with Kim Bradley-Cole and Trevor Long, and Transformative Education, Personal Construct Approaches to Practice and Research with Maureen Pope, amongst many other books. So, and you've done something recently, Pam, on how to prepare for a doctoral viva.
Oh, I'm forever doing that. It's
that's
about once a week I have to do a Zoom on that.
So that sounds
all
interesting.
across the world. So yeah,
that should be useful for some colleagues. So without further ado, let me hand over to the team of 4.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Harry, for a lovely introduction. Now I'm going to check that I can move this slide. Ah, maybe not. Okay, there we go, that's it. Just a quick outline of this session. Really, this is my perspectives on the contributions beyond the traditional thing of diverse research topics. Because it seems to me that their PCP approaches and methods have a huge contribution to make to a psychology for living. So I'll briefly introduce that and then introduce my colleagues, Shane, Marie-Louise and Kim, who will give a brief outline of their research, but mainly concentrate on the additional contributions that it's made to their lives and to those of the people they were researching with. Sorry, was there something there? No, okay. And then we'll have a group discussions, and what we would like you to discuss is beyond your professional work. So whether you're a clinician, whatever, or an educationist or whatever, what value has PCP approach added to your life? Maybe giving a salient example for other people within your group. So something that you don't mind sharing, but how PCP helps you in your normal day-to-day living. And then perhaps I would like us to have a discussion about how can we realize these kind of benefits more widely beyond our professional world to make constructivist perspectives accessible to the wider public, who must contemplate now, especially alternative ways of living. How can we help them to cope with the transformations, good and evil, that may impact on their lives? So I wanted to tell you something. Oh, I think I've missed a slide. How do I go back? There we are. No, it's
I don't think you're actually sharing your presentation now. At least I can't see it. I can only see you, which is quite beautiful.
Oh, well, it was sharing a minute ago. I haven't touched it. Okay, display settings again. Can you see it now?
Alt S, remember.
I'm going back to the beginning now. Oh, I don't know how to get back to the beginning.
Take your time.
Right, now click exit. Go back to the slideshow. Go to from beginning. Okay, can you see it now?
I do not. Do others?
No.
No.
No,
Oh,
Try Alt S again, please.
oh, oh no, I don't do alts very often, so I always press the wrong one. Anything there?
no.
Oh,
Do, do I go to share screen? There's a green button at the bottom of the.
She doesn't have that
Over the
green
pic-
button for some
no,
strange.
I don't have
If
a
she
good-
then she has to be made co-host. So the host should make her co-host. So,
She is co-host.
oh,
All right. Did you press Alt S?
I'm doing it again, Mike, but nothing's happening.
Harry, you want to take over the slideshow?
I'll try. I have to share screen.
I want to be on slide 2 if possible. Oh, right.
Maybe you should go beep or something whenever you want the slide to move forward.
Yeah, I can happily say
So that's the first slide. What slide do you want it on, Pam?
the second one, but we need to go on to the, yeah, that'll do. That's fine.
Onto the slideshow.
Yeah, go to the slideshow.
Next one. No. From all the way to the left, Harry. All the way to the left.
All the way to where it says from the
Bring it up,
beginning.
bring it up. Next one to the.
From beginning, and then
Go ahead, then just press the next slide. You got
that's
it.
it.
Okay, right. Thank you. Now I'm just trying to find all you participants so I can look at you too. Okay. Really this session, I wanted it to be a tribute to Maureen Pope, a great friend of many of you, who I first met in 1980 when she became my doctoral supervisor. And we have been the best of friends ever since. As you say, we've written together, we've roamed the world together, running workshops on PCP and on academic staff development for many years. And she sends her love to you all.
Thank
I
you.
also want to pay tribute to the EPCA founders who met up with me and others in 1990 and onwards. And we used to meet in the Charing Cross Hotel lounge and order tea and cakes in order to have a really interesting meeting to build up a European group. And then other PCP aficionados who I've met over the years and who have helped me to understand better the meanings of the world. One of the EPCA founders was Gavin Dunnett, and he with Peggy published A Psychology for Living, which I think has been influential to many of us over the years. And of course, the most important ones are the authors of the research projects that I've been involved with. Harry, I sent you a list of the ones that I've either co-supervised or supervised, 60 odds that I can remember. There are many, many others who have attended constructivist workshops and have in the process of that worked with people across the world in their different professional guises.
I'm not sure about that list, Pam, but we can send it out afterwards if
Okay, that'd be interesting. Okay, and I'd particularly like to note honourable mention to their participants in that research who shared their constructs so freely with us all. Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
I'm trying to hurry up a bit now. Right, and we've done the outline. If we go to the one after that. Right. Within those participants, the range of topics is multifarious, and it covers a wide range of backgrounds, a wide range of people, and the researchers themselves covered a range of ages, professional and ethnic backgrounds, and prior educational experience. So some of my doctoral researchers were the normal youngish, usually over 25 academic types, and some of them were coming from professional fields, and some of them had no previous academic qualifications at all, but had considerable professional qualifications and wanted to research something important to them in their professional areas. So just to give you a feel for that, in education, there was teachers from every level, every sector, and students from very young to mature, school children to doctoral and professional levels, from gifted people to those who were struggling both physically and mentally, to those who were in different disciplines, from physics to social work to pharmacy to all sorts of different things. In the health range, there were people researching from early childhood to those approaching the end of life, from the young to the elderly, from the physically and mentally well to those who were challenged. There were patients or family of patients or professional carers. And from the world of work, we had leaders and followers from across a range of professions and a range of industries: armed forces and the police, nurses and social workers, academics and hoteliers, building workers, people working for charities, people in business. The final part of the research project nearly always sought the views of the participants, not just in the outcomes, the research contribution to knowledge, if you like, but also about the process of the research. And it included, and my used to be called students, now called doctoral researchers, included that feedback in their discussion chapters. Can we move on? Frequently noted research benefits, so the traditional research justification, if you like, for choosing constructivist approaches was that it facilitates the collection of in-depth, very rich data. It's much less, the methods that they use were much less susceptible to researcher bias than any other methods, any other approaches or paradigms. It enables the participants to identify what was really important to them in the field of discussion and to identify it in their own words. It provides a range of techniques suitable for the diverse ways in which people can best express themselves. That's been particularly useful and will be illustrated by my colleagues, I think, when it's their turn. The range of possible techniques from a researcher's point of view also allows for the triangulation of data so that we can see perspectives from different methods of exploring ideas and also from different participants in any action. The techniques, the analysis and the results make sense to the participants. And I think that has been a really important, credible part of using constructivism in research, is that we don't mess with the data. People don't tell us things and then we go away and add a statistic so that they can't see their words, can't see their ideas present. So it makes them much more reliable as far as the participants are concerned. And the feedback from researchers and participants alike, I've included these descriptions that I've got here. These are participants saying that it was insightful, liberating, interesting, meaningful, transformative, empowering, engaging, motivating, and the one I like most, it was fun. I think if people have fun when they're working with you in research, then you have a better link with them and they're more likely to share their construct with you. So can we go on to some other benefits, please? The next slide. Okay, so these are frequently noted personal benefits. So beyond the contribution to knowledge, beyond the value of the research, these are things that people personally felt they gained from engaging with constructivist techniques in the research. They began to recognize that there was more than one perspective in life, and that every perspective that people has is derived from a singular experience that they have had. So it makes them much more open to understanding other people's viewpoints. It helps them to accept with lessened guilt that they have idiosyncratic perspectives themselves. And it gives them encouragement to explore where they got those perspectives from, maybe even challenge them sometimes. There was an acknowledgement that others have reasons for why they think and behave in the way they do. And some of us are trying really hard to maintain that belief as we look at our various leaders at the moment. There are challenges to taken for granted or unnoticed assumptions, prejudices and paradigms. Understanding has become promoted. Being aware of diversity doesn't mean that you have to accept that diversity, that viewpoint. I remember a session given by Faye Francella when she said, I am willing to listen to other people's constructs, but I don't have to agree with them. And that stayed with me. We don't have to agree with them, but we do have to understand perhaps that they've come from a different place. It encourages to be more considerate of the grounds for our own viewpoints and perceptions and to understand others too. It provides people with tools for exploring their own viewpoints and expectations, helping them to select pathways with more positive potential, perhaps. And it helps them to develop constructivist coping strategies for dealing with a complex and unpredictable world. And can we look at the next slide? So despite all the currently imposed and adopted restrictions that we have, locked as we are in our studies or our homes, we can expand our role as personal scientists. Thank you, George Kelly, for telling us that no one needs to paint themselves into a corner. And before I hand over to my colleagues, can I just have one last slide here? This is my personal story of how beyond research, beyond academia, my own personal life has been helped by being a constructivist. Nearly 10 years ago, there was the prospect of retirement galloping towards me, and I was terrified. I really, really hated the thought of not doing what I've been doing for the last 40 years. So I love this Charles Dickens. This is the beginning, the first paragraph of A Tale of Two Cities. In many ways, it was the best of times, but it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness, the epoch of belief, the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light and the season of darkness, and the spring of hope and the winter of despair. I was torn between thinking of all the things that I might do with the time left to me and regretting leaving a lot of the fun things behind. But thanks to Marie-Louise and Kim and Shane and many of their fellow researchers and colleague academics, spring sprung rather than winter causing despair. I've built a new life on the best of the old and had great fun doing it and hope to continue doing so for some time, especially with these good friends. So I think we should turn now to my colleagues and ask them if they would tell you something about their research. I think, are we starting with Shane? Yes.
Oh,
Shane,
thank
are
you.
you with me?
I am. I'm with you. Thank you so much, Pam. Thanks for that lovely introduction, and I'm very glad that I could be a part of that sprung spring as well. It's been so much fun. Yeah, I think just reflecting on some of the things that that Pam mentioned there. Oh, I think the slide has disappeared. Could we?
Do you want them back?
Yeah. Yes, please. Please.
Oh,
Well,
is it better?
Shane, can you talk while he's getting the?
I can certainly talk.
I know.
Is it this one?
That's the one. Yeah. Thank you very much, Harry.
Can you go down? There we go.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, I was just reflecting on what Pam was saying, and I think for me, what really hit home was just how awe-inspiring actually the range of different research topics, the diversity of participants that have benefited from engaging with constructivist research. I think it's quite incredible the long list of different topics that have been covered, and also I think outside of research itself, constructivism, engaging with the constructivist way of thinking does bring a number of personal and professional benefits as well. So in the short section that I have, I'd like to talk a little bit about that really and share with you my experience of journeying along rivers of experience. I imagine many of you are familiar with rivers of experience, but in case you're not, or we just want a refresher, I've put an example river of experience up here on the slide, which is a creative technique very much embedded in constructivist PCP thinking. And it was a technique that was really at the heart of the data collection for my own PhD research, which explored the factors that contribute to timely and successful completion of doctorates. So what I'd really like to do in the time we have is I'll talk a little bit about the mechanics of how I used rivers of experience and what they contributed to my research. I'd also like to share with you some of the unexpected estuaries, to use the river metaphor, that this particular technique led to both in my personal and professional life. And they were incredibly surprising and very fulfilling and enriching. But before I do that, I did just want to say a few words about how I came to first engage with constructivism and how I kind of entered into this way of thinking. So I guess like many people really, my first interactions with constructivism really came through the early stages of my research project, when I was spending a lot of time thinking through different research paradigms, trying to work through the different advantages, the affordances and challenges of working with those different paradigms. And for me, that was really important because I felt it was really critical for the way that my research unfolded to have a strong sense of the kind of the philosophical underpinnings of my research, those philosophical foundations on which I'd be kind of building my findings and building my contributions. And I spent a lot of time working through that. And it was a workshop that Pam ran with one of her former PhD students, Trevor Long, that really opened my eyes to the prospects of constructivism, what it can really contribute to research. And I must say, I found it incredibly beguiling. There are a number of elements of constructivism that really spoke to me in that workshop. And I think, first and foremost, it was the person-centeredness of constructivism that really grabbed me. For my research, I was interested in delving into the experiences of doctoral researchers, of supervisors, of those who support doctoral researchers, to try to get get into their shoes, to try to understand their world, to try to understand how they perceived progress and how it can be enabled, how it might be constrained. And I just felt that what I was seeing about constructivism is it seemed really well suited for focusing in on the person, for eliciting those deep and rich accounts of experience. And certainly I found that as my research unfolded. At the philosophical level as well, I found the idea of the double hermeneutic really helpful. I felt that there was an honesty and a transparency about what the knowledge claims that we produce actually rested on. And I didn't find that that was as apparent or as easy to get to grips with in other paradigms that I was looking at. So I found that really helpful, really clear for me. Also, as at that time, a fledgling researcher, very new to this, I found that the quality criteria around constructivist research that Denzin and Lincoln identified, so the credibility, confirmability, dependability, and transferability, I found those criteria really helpful because as a new researcher, there were lots of moments where I would ask myself, how do I know if I'm doing a good job of this? How do I know if this is going to stand up to scrutiny? How do I know if I'm going about this in the right way? And I found it really helpful when I had those moments of doubts, those moments of uncertainty, to think about those quality criteria and try to think about how my research kind of mapped onto that, how my approach was meeting those criteria. And actually, as a research student, that was really, really helpful to me because, in those moments of doubts, I could see where I was, where I felt like I might be on the wrong track, and also where I was doing things quite well. So it was really helpful just for getting a sense of where I was, what I needed to work on more, what I felt I kind of was doing okay in the research. So it provided me with a really useful kind of roadmap, a really useful guide for approaching and thinking about my research itself. So for all those reasons, a constructivist, working with constructivism was really transformative, I think, for my research. And I'm really pleased that I was introduced to it, and I'm really pleased that I spent a lot of time thinking and working with it. And I guess one of the biggest pleasures of my PhD was working with this creative method, Rivers of Experience, which was really fundamental to how I went about collecting data and analysing the data. And I mean, Rivers of Experience are an incredibly accessible creative method to use in research. I mean, how I adapted it for my particular PhD was in the example of students. I asked doctoral researchers, doctoral students who I was interviewing prior to the interview to spend some time reflecting on their experience of their PhD or other doctorates so far, and asked them to imagine their experience as a winding river, and then against each bend in the river, just to mark something that was important to them in terms of their progress, whether it's something that helped them or whether it's something that kind of stood in the way, might have tripped them up, might have caused them some problems. And I introduced this method partway through my pilot interviews. And when I look back on that, definitely I feel that using this particular method completely changed the dynamic of how the interviews were working. So, I found that participants really enjoyed, as Pam was saying, they had a lot of fun using this method. And they came to the interviews, really kind of itching to talk about their experiences, itching to share their rivers of experience with me. They'd done a lot of reflection prior to the interview, so they came along with a lot to say. And I felt that actually it was really helpful as well for reducing the interviewer influence in that interaction. They did a lot of the talking, and my job became more kind of prompting, probing, noting down things of interest, and trying to work and dig into some of those experiences that the participants were really kind of open and willing to share with me through this particular technique. And I mean, I think, sometimes with creative methods, there is some concern expressed in the literature about how they can sometimes be seen to be not very accessible, because if people don't feel that they're particularly artistic, then they might feel that they might not be able to engage with that. Now, one of the beauties, I think, of one of the big benefits of working with Rivers of Experience is you don't have to be a Rembrandt or a Michelangelo to do this and for it to be effective. So, I had a whole range of Rivers of Experience that my research participants brought along to the interviews. There were some who really played visually with the metaphor of the river. They had drew smooth straights to really demonstrate when they were making progress. They had dams and logs to demonstrate those times when they were really struggling. And those, obviously those were incredibly revelatory rivers. But at the same time, and I count myself in this category when I've used this technique on myself, just a simple pencil, a squiggly line with some notes at each bend can be just as revelatory, just as illuminating, is a great entry point into that individual's experience as well. So actually, it's a creative method. It is very diverse and it's incredibly accessible. And certainly, as I said, it really transformed the dynamic of the interviews. And I would say it was also, you know, when I think about it, it changed those interviews into deltas of discovery, really. I think it really did help me to interpret the key findings of my PhD. And I think without the rivers of experience, I wouldn't have been able to talk about critical events in the doctorate. I wouldn't have had as deep an insight into how different manifestations of agency and structure can enable or constrain progress. So it was absolutely fundamental to the key findings from my PhD. So I'm incredibly pleased that I came across this method, that I worked with constructivism, and it made a huge difference really to my PhD project. But also beyond the PhD as well, I have had these, as I say, unexpected estuaries where the work with rivers of experience has really taken on a life of its own. So I'd like to share a few examples of that with you, if that's okay. So one example is back in January of this year, before we even were thinking about coronaviruses and lockdowns, we had a really great doctoral training partnership conference at my university. And I was asked to do a workshop based on my research. And I thought, actually, you know, the work that I've done with rivers of experience, I think this would be really great for helping doctoral researchers to reflect on their own PhDs or other doctorates to date, and to help them to kind of draw out those kind of critical moments and help them to be more kind of aware of what those critical events are in the doctorate, so mapping them back onto my research findings and talking about the characteristics of those critical events. And that was a fantastic workshop. We, you know, the group really engaged with the river of experience. I think the only criticism we had is we could have gone on all day. You know, there was so much to talk about, so much more we could have done. But they found it incredibly useful for reflecting on their own experience, and we had some really great feedback, and it was really nice to be able to do that. That kind of snowballed actually, because when lockdown happened in the UK, I was contacted by a research student who had participated in that workshop. And she asked me if I'd be willing to do something similar for the doctoral researchers on the doctoral training partnership, because, you know, she was expressing how, you know, at that point in time that doctoral researchers were quite uncertain about things. There's quite a lot of anxiety, and she thought that this, using rivers of experience, might be quite helpful. So we discussed how that workshop might run. So, you know, we did it through Zoom, and really what we were trying to do was to use rivers of experience to help doctoral researchers to think about their projects in light of the pandemic, but also really with all the kind of uncertainty and, you know, craziness that was going on in the world, to give a moment of pause, a moment of togetherness, a moment of quiet reflection, and to get that sense of what they'd already achieved. And I wanted to share the feedback, which was, it was analysed and written up independently by somebody who didn't run the workshop, but looked at the feedback. And as a constructivist, I was really happy with what they told us, because the feedback was that the participants found the river of experience technique particularly useful for reflecting on their PhD journeys. Several participants commented that the workshop had enabled them to reframe some of the challenges they had experienced during the PhD process so far, offering them a new perspective on present and future challenges. And as a constructivist, to hear those words, you know, it helped them to reframe some of the challenges they had experienced. It offered a new perspective on present and future challenges. To have been able to be a part of that and to have made that kind of difference in that moment to that group, I found, you know, incredibly rewarding and incredibly humbling. And it really did, again, just kind of bring home the power and the prospects of working within a constructivist paradigm. So what else? I've done similar work as well with supervisors, where we've used rivers of experience to help them to reflect on their own experiences of supervising doctorates. And also, personally and professionally, I've used rivers of experience individually. So through my PhD, and this is always Pam's advice, if you're going to use constructivist techniques, make sure you know how to use them on yourself before you go and use them with other people. And actually, that was really great advice, because I used the river of experience at regular intervals throughout my PhD to help me make sense of my own research journey, and to use it as a tool to reflect on where I'd come from in the PhD and where I was going, where I might be grappling with difficulties, how I might work my way through them. And it was so helpful to me on a personal level in making sense of my own PhD journey. Also, I'm very lucky in that I'm a father to a very energetic 3-year-old. And of course, going into parenthood, it's quite a, it can be quite jarring. It's not something I had direct experience of doing before, but I have found using rivers of experience as a way of reflecting on my own kind of changes and my own, I guess, development as a father and navigating my way through parenthood. It's been a really useful, really helpful tool for, again, to help me make sense of this kind of new chapter in my life and how I can try to be a good dad to my son. And also, I use it as well to think about my own career crossroads as well. I've recently finished my PhD. I want, thinking about what's next. So I've really gone back to the genesis of rivers of experience, which I think were originally used with teachers and helping them reflect on their career paths. So I've been using that as well independently to help me think about my own career, where I've come from and where I might be going. So what to say, working with constructivism has been an incredibly enriching and incredibly rewarding aspect of my life recently. And I think, for the research and beyond the research itself, I found it to be incredibly transformative. So I was trying to think about how to capture that. And luckily, on the radio, a song by the Rolling Stones came on, which I think just really encapsulated how I feel about these rivers of experience. And I'll paraphrase Mick and Co. They say, I'll keep following the river to join hands with the sea, because the river always brought out the best in me. And I certainly identify with that. So I think I'll leave it there, and I'll hand you over to Mary Louise. Thank you.
Well, I think actually Kim is, thank you very much, Shane. I recognize so much of myself and my lengthy struggles. My river was very long, but in the end, I managed to reach the sea. I think that Kim is next in line slide-wise anyhow, and I think since she's always also is going to demonstrate something very visual, I think that might make sense.
What do you want to do, Marie-Louise? Do you want to go from this slide?
I wanted us to show Kim's slide, which I thought would be the next one. No, then it will be the next again. There it is. Good. Is that okay with you, Kim? Because I think your very visual works links in so nicely to Shane.
Can I just say that you've got about 10 minutes.
Yes, I know.
And then Kim has 10 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want me to go through mine?
Yes, I thought that would be nice. What do you think, Kim?
Yeah, I'm
happy.
Okay?
Hi, Kim.
Hi. Okay, so just to give you a bit of a background on my journey into the world of PCP and a life with Pam. As I came into Pam's life as she was exiting academia 10 years ago, and I'm one of the people who've not let her leave, so that's quite nice. Nice for me anyway. So I first came across Kelly's work when I started my retraining journey as an OC-Psych back in 2005 in a workplace module around the repertory grid. And prior to retraining, I worked for a long time in FMCG marketing, and I was very interested in research and consumer-based research, and I was interested in understanding how people live their lives and what makes them behave in their groups and how they come to understand the world that they live in. So my original intention was that I was, having worked in the innovation space, that I was going to switch over, find a master's in market research and switch my career into insight work. And then I stumbled across this postgraduate diploma at Royal Holloway in psychology to convert my degree. and that started me on this journey. And so in my PhD, which I did at Reading with Pam as my supervisor, and again, that was a serendipitous moment actually, because I just happened to pitch up to one of Pam's workshops and never let her go after that. So that was good. So yes, I used the repertory grid in my PhD work, and that was with senior leaders and how they come to attribute authenticity to their own leaders. And then really from that, it's in my career since then that I have started to elaborate on different more storytelling based methods offered to us within PCP, and really brought them beyond research. So I started off using drawings in my research and when I was at Surrey, in terms of actually helping, so based on Higgins self-discrepancy theory, but really trying to understand how different leaders come to understand their role positions, both their personal role positions and their professional role positions, and where the tensions are between those different roles. And I used lots of different elaborative techniques that were around that storytelling approach. And then that sort of extended beyond that into using it in my coaching practice, because I was inherently frustrated with reductionist methods and felt that if we're going to, to use Pam's analogy and Kelly's words around nobody needs to paint themselves into a corner, if we are going to liberate people from their learned scripts and their assigned roles in their habitual non-reflective flow of life, then psychometric tools are never going to achieve that and never going to enable people to change. So I became much more interested in that, and I've worked over the years with many different sorts of people, from teenagers who don't know what to do with their life choices, they don't know whether to go to university, they don't know what career to have, they don't know what's expected of them, versus the fact that they don't even realise that they have a free choice, that it's their lives and they don't have to be pushed down a trajectory that other people are deciding for them. So I found PCP and a lot of the techniques in PCP really valuable for working with students who are still in the secondary school space or in the sixth form space, right up to working with director level leaders who really want to explore their own leadership identity and bring more of themselves and their authentic selves into their roles. So again, as I said, I started with using drawings in research. I started to realise actually the power of this technique and how much richness it adds to research conversations, and then moved that into coaching space. And it's culminated in the publication of mine and Pam's book, which has just come out, which is all around constructivist coaching, and around bringing the depth and richness of this approach into the coaching space, because I've found over the last 10 years, I found it really valuable, and I've become much more elaborative and ambitious in the things that I do with coaching clients in ways that 10 years ago I would never have thought was possible. And I've also let go, I think, in terms of what I've learned, is I've completely let go in my coaching life of thinking that I can overlay anything or any sort of direction on the people that I work with, and very much put myself more in the position of a co-explorer on a journey of discovery with them. I find it so, and not only have I done that in the coaching space, I've also brought PCP into my own teaching. As I say, I'm an occupational psychologist, so part of what I do in my role at Winchester is thinking about graduate employability and how we help students ready themselves for work. And so I use constructive techniques actively within each year of the undergraduate degree to help students self-explore, to feel much more confident about their own individuality, and to really feel confident in making decisions that are right for them rather than ascribed to them. I do find when using drawings that they are, you can quite, I've found anyway, get beyond this idea that I can't draw. I mean, I have people who just do sticks and things and they're fine. And I just reinforce it by saying I'm just interested in how you make sense of the thing. I'm not interested in the quality of your drawings. So whilst I've put up examples of the person in this position, this is a coaching a leader who drew herself at work, and you can clearly see from that first picture that she's finding her situation quite overwhelming. She's very stressed. She feels she has a very full-on job, and then who she is at home as a mum. She tries to balance this 4-day working week. She's trying to live this life of I'm a professional woman, therefore I can do it all, I can have it all, which is a myth. So myths, I think, are really interesting to come out. What are the myths that this person's living with that just bring failure? So this idea that you can have it all and that you can compartmentalize your children into a quality time pocket on a Tuesday was something that came out of her interview, was that the stories she's telling herself around, it's okay, I can manage because I give my children quality time. And then when you explore what quality time means, you realize that that's impoverishing her and that she's not fulfilling either role. So when she's in one role, she's got guilt over not being in the other role. So there's all these tensions that would not come out in a general conversation, but the pictures draw them out. And then what I found interesting in the third one, which is why I put it in the book, is that when she's asked to draw the ideal person in her role, she draws not only somebody who's very organised, but somebody who's a man in a senior leadership position. So again, there's lots of stuff that you really can explore from drawings. And I have found, as I said over the years, that in abstracting the research process or the coaching process or the teaching process really gets beyond people's learned scripts and really makes them stop and reflect. And in terms of I've had generally people find it very liberating, but I have had instances of people bursting into tears, people leaving the room, because the overwhelming sense of realization that they've been living with things they've never stopped to reflect on can be quite overwhelming at times. So that's really me, really. Just I hope I haven't gone over my 10 minutes.
Great, thanks. Thanks a lot, Kim. So Marie-Louise, where are you?
I'm here, and thank you very much, Kim. That's very interesting, and it links very well into what I was going to talk about, my managers. So, Harry, if you would be so kind to go backwards. There you are. So my story is in many ways the same as Shane's and Kim's, but it goes 20 years back to when I first met Pam. She was invited along with Debbie Jankovic to run a workshop in Sweden, in the south of Sweden, where we are situated. And as it turned out, that turned into beautiful years where I was introduced to the PCP circle, met some wonderful people, and it also turned into quite a beautiful friendship, which I am very grateful for, and I hope that will last for many years from now. What I would like to illustrate here now is a combination of constructivist techniques in a participative and action-oriented project, which we run some time ago with the Swedish social care managers. They were in a position, the context of this project was that there had been a large organizational change, which didn't turn out very well. So there were protests from the staff, from caretakers, from relatives to caretakers, and well, pretty much from everyone. So this organization realized, well, obviously we wanted to make a positive change, and apparently we didn't. So we need help in this. So it was a mutual decision from the top management and actually the employers' organizations that they would approach us at Kristianstad University and ask if we could run a project together in order to sort of figure out what had really actually happened and how we could transform that into something more positive. And my role in this project was to run a workshop series with the managers in this organization, and that was the managers who they had their own managerial areas within social care of older people, and what they wanted was that they both wanted professional individual development, and they wanted to develop as a group. So the first part of this project was that we agreed that we would do individual repertory grid interviews on their tasks, what they actually did as managers. And then we would also have feedback of the individual results at the focused group session. And they found those results from the individual repertory grid interviews so interesting that led on to the second part of this project, where we work with a technique that is called diary in group. And in this exploration of their professional roles through their tasks, they found out a lot about themselves, a lot about the tasks that they performed, that they hadn't actually thought about the maybe second or third meaning of those tasks. And in the focus group session, they called this their own exploration of this, for that they looked into that their role was a box, and what they were doing in that session was looking into the box, looking into the role, actually trying to find out what is this all about. And that inspired them so much, so they asked me, well, we don't want to end this here. Couldn't we do something else? What do you think? Have you any suggestions? And I said, well, there is this technique, the diary in group technique, which involves that each one of you, this was a group of 10, you keep a personal diary, a work-related personal diary for 5 work days. And then we meet up every second week to discuss that actual diary. So that's what we did, and we met at their workplace. So we also got the feeling of what their workplace was like, and this turned out to be something it could have been seen as strenuous. Am I supposed to keep a diary for 5 years? For 5 days? No, that's out of the question because I have such enormous workload. But they did it, and the form of the diary was free for everyone to choose. And on the sessions, we started by that the host of that session started reading from his or her diary. And then it was free for all the other participants to ask questions or comment. And it turned out that they talked about this 10 years after. They talked about the qualities of these sessions and what they led to. So it's very much about the positive group climate, about trust, peer guidance, experience-based learning, and problem solving, because they saw that they had mutual problems and they could act together to solve the problems that they experienced individually, and that way actually go from their individual corners and into something better.
You want that one now?
Yes, exactly. And to me and to them, we got the picture of the manager's very complex work situation. And you can now just click on Harry, and we'll see what evolves. So if you're interested in experiencing complex situations together with the people that are themselves experience these situations, then the diary and group method is a lovely method. And to me and to them, it also showed the many facets of the social care management that goes beyond any work descriptions or beyond anything that you could read about in the papers in this difficult situation. And they themselves, they explored the difficulties they had with actually fulfilling their caring leadership ideal, because that was one of the thing that was the most difficult for them, was that their ideal picture of themselves was in contrast with what they actually could achieve. So they were experiencing a lot of dilemmas where they couldn't be the manager, the leader that they wanted to be and needed to be. So that was a very interesting project to me, and I think the most valuable thing is that they so strongly voiced that this was something that they had never experienced before, and something that they felt so strongly that it helped them to manage a very difficult situation. That's my story, and I think it's about time's up, isn't
Very
it,
good
Harry?
timing. Do you want to, the four of you, say any more before we do the breakout groups? Would you like to say what the task is again?
I will put the tasks, the discussion questions in the chat before we break out. And by doing so, you will...
No, one before that.
No, it's all right.
I'm trying to come out of the stop. I can't get stop sharing. Somehow.
No, but that's okay, because I will share it in the chat, and then everyone will. You can just click into the chat. Let's see. Yes.
How do I stop sharing, Mike? You there? Ah, there. Great.
Okay.
Oh, Mike's not there at the moment. Is it, is somebody doing the breakout groups? Oh, Mike. Can't hear you.
That was.
So we're back. Pam,
Yeah. Super.
Pam,
Yes.
you want to moderate the discussion, Pam, and all of you?
I don't mind. I think we could all jump in when we need to. We've got the question there several times over. Thank you, Mary-Louise.
Yes.
Anyway, we hope you all enjoyed your discussion. In our group, we had great fun. We all had toys. We all had toys in our group. So that was good.
How did you manage that?
Oh, well, it's amazing what people have in their studies, you see. That's the thing. Once we've started on it, we found more and more.
Nigel has a curious little toy there.
A Moomin.
He has a Moomin. I have a frog.
What went on in that group?
Yeah, we had.
We don't want to know.
It was quite innocent, I'm certain.
Oh, well, we won't tell. We won't.
Confidentiality.
Okay. So everybody.
So, Sandy, were you going to introduce the plenary?
Well, I'll introduce the plenary by saying that the thing that seems to have struck most people is how playful PCP is, and how it allows adults to play in a time when really adults don't get a lot of chance to play. Life seems very serious. So it would be good if Kim and Shane and Mary-Louise and Pam, if you would like to conduct this discussion, really. But your question was, how have we found PCP to be benefiting us personally? It sounds like there were some fruitful discussions. Would the toy group like to start?
Oh, yes, toy group. Nigel, what would you say was the summary?
Oh, it's hard to summarize. Well, one of the things was, I think, the examples we gave. I mean, like when I heard the question, I thought, I don't know if I can answer this, but actually I could. But it's because, as you said, we don't really, when you've been in the broadly constructivist world for quite a long time, you don't think, oh, I'll try being a constructivist now to do this. You just kind of have available that kind of step back and think, what if I was playing a different role here? Or what if I saw this as if it was that? And I think we all kind of had examples of that sort of thing, which I thought was really useful.
Thank you. Thank you. And what about group one? Any revelations you would like to share that are not going to give secrets away?
Well, I'm not sure we know what group we were in, but I think I was in group one. It's a serious discussions about the seriosity of how to confront some of the issues you have with yourself in relation to others.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my issues about the very right-wingish politicians that appear to a large extent in Sweden nowadays, which I find very difficult.
Everywhere, Mary-Louise.
Yes, and I find it very difficult to regard them as people.
Well, I think that's challenging many of us, and particularly those today in the USA are finding challenges to understanding other people's viewpoints, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else from that group? David, you looked as if you were about to say something.
And just following on from you, not only not understanding other people's viewpoints, but showing extreme Kellyan hostility and demonstrating that they have been elected when they haven't, for example.
Well, just unbelievable, really, isn't it? Yeah.
But doesn't it make sense in terms of somebody like Trump? He's never. I mean, he goes from moment to moment and has to win in each moment.
Yeah.
And doesn't have an overarching sort of view. The past is nothing. The future is nothing. I often have to explain that to people. I'm not a researcher at all, but a therapist. But I find quite a lot of clients either have a sociopathic boss or parent or spouse or somebody. And that's the only thing that makes sense of their behavior. So why do they say this? It makes no sense. It makes sense because in that little instant, that's going to make them feel good. If you're looking for a long-term sense about it, there isn't one. They don't seem to run a long-term story. They go from moment to moment, and the moment is all. And if you want to talk to them about the past, they don't care. They get very hostile if you say, but last week you said so-and-so. Oh, that's rubbish. It doesn't exist. If you think, but if that is the case, then what about next time? If you want to stop the counting now here, well, the counting in the next date might work for you. Oh, that's all right. Carry that counting on. Stop this one. So
how do we describe that in Kellyan terms or in constructivist terms?
Well, how I describe it to people, I don't know if it's Kellyan terms, but it's basically, it's kind of the crosshairs. A person who runs in those situations is running a very basic thing that you might find in gang culture. You find it in organized crime, but you also find it, which is like, there's a dominance hierarchy, which is vertical, and there's a competitive hierarchy, which is horizontal. And they're always in the middle of the crosshairs. They're looking ahead to see who's ahead, who's behind. And too many aheads will make you go up the dominance. So they're always aware of that. But they're very rarely aware of anything in advance of it happening. So there's no consistency at all. But in the moment, whatever, I mean, one thing they often do that you see with Trump all the time, they will promote somebody because they think that will knock someone else off their perch. And then as soon as they're promoted, they'll start resenting them. And then they'll be off their perch because they don't look ahead.
Have you helped people in your work with those kind of patterns?
Well, yes. I mean, it's about the only way. Sort of takes a bit of time, but ultimately, you know, they try it out as a hypothesis. If I don't expect anything else from a person, am I not going to be shocked or disappointed? Because the thing that sort of really knocks people sideways about somebody who operates like that is that they keep expecting consistency and they don't get it. But if you don't expect anything else, then you keep your balance in the situation. And it doesn't surprise me. And of course, the one thing is they never count on anything that they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
So if you have an ex-spouse like that, and they're supposed to pay, just give you a typical example. Oh, our child can't go to a state school, must go to this school, and they pay the fees, and then next term they don't pay the fees. So what are you to do then? Are you going to bankrupt yourself paying the fees, or tell your child they've got to leave all these friends they've just made and go to this other place?
Somebody,
they don't care. What was that?
Sorry, somebody described somebody like that as a person who shakes your hand
and pisses in your pocket.
Yeah, they'll do whatever suits them at the time,
Yeah.
without any consideration for 5 minutes ago or 5 minutes hence.
They're only in the now. How
Always
come
in the know, and
help
not in a good way.
people? How come those of us who are not therapists or no longer doing research, how can we help ordinary people? What can we say to people to help them to understand this kind of situation? Because we're all expecting, surely he won't do that, surely she won't do that, surely this won't happen, and then it does, and then we don't know what to do. And it's it's almost like we're dealing with a virus, wouldn't you think? It's like we don't know what it's going to do next. We don't know what Trump's going to do next. We don't know what COVID's going to do next. We don't know whether we're going to have an agreement with Europe and the UK next week. We don't know anything. So we're all living in this world of not knowing what to expect next. So how can we help our friends and neighbors without going into therapy with them, but how can we help them to understand these kind of things?
I think one of the big problems that, if you will, the Democrats in the United States have had, and I believe that they've failed and continue to fail, is in making the issue about Trump and making the issue about the election about how bad Trump is. I think it's a problem. I think that what they should have been doing is marginalizing Trump and then looking at the needs, the perspectives, the constructs of the Trump supporters who see him as some sort of a champion for their plight. And I think it's a lapse of sociality, a tremendous lapse of sociality, that we've made it into us versus them. And so many of the Trump supporters, they're Trump supporters because people like me, quite frankly, Northeastern liberal white academics, they feel looked down upon, and they want a champion. And so I think that there are very good ways of understanding Trump supporters. We just don't do it. We won't do it.
I think that is very similar to the situation in the UK with Brexit. So you had a lot of people who basically were of the view that it was the uninformed who basically voted for Brexit without thinking about how they felt left behind. A lot of people in the society felt left behind. So I think you're absolutely right. This isn't a matter of personalities anymore. It's a matter of good governance. And by focusing on personalities, you're simply feeding the beast. So this is an individual who is on Twitter all the time. It's about him. And, Sharon's absolutely right. What he does is to try to get everybody around him off balance in order to maintain his own personal, balance for the next thing ahead, the next Twitter, the next tweet rather, about X, Y, or Z, whether it be true or not. He doesn't really care. He's an attention seeker. The idea of him losing is literally so overwhelming that he'd literally wreck the American system, the American political system, to avoid it. I think Anthony Scaramucci put it very well on the BBC last night. Trump is a disaster, not only for America, but for the entire world, for global policy and the politics, particularly in relation to rogue states. He's a disaster, but we will get beyond Trump. And somebody needs to step in and say, this is no longer about Trump. This is about America and American democracy and moving forward as a society. Somebody has to do it. Once we get into the business of Biden is X or Kamala Harris is Y or Trump is Z, then the game is lost. We've got to get back to the fundamentals.
Ironically, the thing that maintained the support of traditional Republicans or conservatives, I find that difficult terms coming from the UK, is that the structural changes that he's made are the kind of Faustian pact that they have with Trump, and he's made significant changes that are going to be there for a lifetime, which is very, very difficult for anyone who doesn't agree with that, because we are now powerless, because he has put bricks in the wall that it's very difficult to challenge or change.
Oh, we can't. We're not powerless. There must be, and we, Nellarine and others. We need to not talk about someone needs to do it. I think we're all responsible. We all have to do something, even if it's only a tiddly bit. You know, the rubber tree points to the ant. You know.
Sorry, Pam.
Carry on.
I have been. You have to bear with me because I'm working this out as I'm going. I have been thinking that we personally, if you look at this from a narrative perspective, Trump or Al Johnson or whoever you want, if you give them a role in a story, like Trump is the king or the emperor or whatever. I mean, that has been mentioned, the emperor's, you know, the emperor's clothes, etc., new clothes. I've been wondering if we personally need to swing the narrative when we're talking to other people and not concentrate on the main characters in the story, but rather concentrate on, well, okay, I come from an opera background, so the chorus. What's going on on the stage? What is the chorus doing? What is the chorus's needs? These are the people who actually matter, because they're the ones that are going to implement the narrative. So in a sense, we need to be telling the story in a different way, but telling it from Trump supporters' view. What do they need from the world that they're not getting, and what do we need from the world that we're not getting, and how can we ignore the leaders? How can we get that from each other? I don't know if that makes any sense at all to anybody else, but
yeah, I think
trying to see how you would swing the narrative around.
I think it makes perfect sense. I have to say, in our group, we had a wonderful, really positive discussion about how the challenges of COVID-19, Brexit, the US election there are changes happening that are almost liminal, and that mean we're not going to go back to the same place. So we talked about changes in the way that people with children with challenges, psychological challenges, could be supported better through the online platform because of the challenges that that facing those families, often associated with poverty and having to work and so on, and the flexibility that afforded them. We talked about the importance of the way that the world of work is changing. So I gave the example of my nephew, he's director at HSBC Bank in Canary Wharf. He's not going back to his office. He will be getting a new house. He'll be doing a lot of things remotely without having to clock up the air miles. We talked about how you can educate online in a way that is inclusive, and the importance of organizations like the World Bank, the UN, the European Union, making sure there is no longer the kind of digital divide in the global south that excludes them from opportunities. So I thought about a chapter I wrote ages ago in the Essential Handbook for PCP about the comprehensive construct, about the capacity and the dimensions of transition. And the comprehensive construct was important for me because I was referring to really sensitive and challenging issues, and the importance of being able to have sufficient view of what is possible to project yourself into a different future. So lockdown round 1 is very different to lockdown round 2. We know what's possible now. We don't have to be shut in completely. We can go out and exercise. We can meet with other people. So we need to give an indication of what is possible. You know, if we focus on what is impossible or what is difficult, It's a very negative conversation. And I'm not saying it's one that should be avoided, because it's the reality. But if there are glimmers of what is possible and what will be different, I don't think people are going to be working the way they did in the past. And, you know, the work of people like Amit as an architect, designing space for work so that we can work at home and in somewhere else and do that seamlessly, incredibly important. You know, so there are real things, really positive things we can say to people. You know, I ran a conference recently, 800-900 people, half from the global south, because it was £20 each and online. It's an inclusive, not an exclusive conference. So there's lots that can be done post-Brexit, post-COVID, post the UN elections that can create an uplift for the least able in society. And those are the things I think we need to speak to and applaud, because I think it's an exciting time.
That sounds lovely.
Really, it's a challenging time, but an exciting time.
One way to think about, I think, the opportunity that, I don't know how to say your name, Nerlin? Is speaking.
He said Nellarine.
Nellarine, I'm sorry, thank you.
That's no problem.
The opportunity, I'm struck by Sandy's metaphor of the chorus, and speaking to the chorus. I'm going to share my screen. You've all seen this, I'm sure. Here's the map, and the numbers are really, really thin. And when I look at this map, I see a construct. I see a polarity. I see, you know, for the chorus looking at this, I don't see how each side of the chorus cannot be petrified by this, because it's right down the middle, you see? And maybe there's an opportunity in the fear of that if we're not going to be, if either side can't beat each other, my goodness, we're going to need a third way, you know? You know, we have to transcend the construct. I wonder if that's a possible opportunity for us, you know, to exploit the fear and say, hey, people got to start looking for a third way.
Excuse me, Michael, you're not from Pennsylvania, are you?
No, I'm in an oasis called Massachusetts.
Yes. So, although I'm in Germany at the moment, I am a Pennsylvania voter, and I came most recently from Pittsburgh, where, as I think everyone knows, the white working class struggles with a number of, I want to say, superordinate constructions about what it means to be white, to be male, to be a good man. And these are constructions that, when they no longer operate in a modern economy, cause them to fall into abjection, because they cannot ever shift their construing, and they don't have anyone or any way to help them create a new construction or to make the transition. It's I'm either an old-fashioned steel worker, or I am dead. I am nothing. And there's no in between for them, and there's nothing to help them. And so they have chosen opioids, right? So that's one thing that I think would be very interesting to do, is to change these larger constructs and the larger construing around what a successful man is. What is the new working class? What is a new provider? How can you be different, but not lose your masculinity and not lose respect?
That's brilliant.
Lovely. I hope that's recorded.
It's
too kind.
Yes, still recording.
I'm looking for an opportunity to stop the discussion, which is a horrible thing to have to do, but time is not on our side. I just want to say what a good discussion I thought that was. Suddenly we're beginning to work as a group and look at the most important things that are facing us, and that's got to be good. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, particularly to our 4 presenters today. And just to quickly say about next week, it's 1 week's time. Yes, let's clap. Pam and Kim and Shane and Marie-Louise. Yeah, so